How did Boston get started, and how did you come up with the name?
John Boylan was the co-producer on the first record, and he said, hey, well, you're all from Boston. You know, what do you think about Boston?
Bradley Edward Delp, known as the iconic lead vocalist of the rock band Boston, lived a life full of musical achievement and personal turmoil. His voice defined an era of classic rock, and his contributions to some of the greatest rock albums of the 1970s and 1980s are indisputable. Yet beneath the soaring vocals that captured the hearts of millions, Delp struggled with deep personal demons that ultimately led to his tragic death by suicide in 2007.
The lead singer of the rock band Boston has died. Brad Delp's fiancée found his body in his South New Hampshire home yesterday. Police say the death was untimely, but there was no indication of foul play.
Brad Delp's death was a shock to his fans, bandmates, and friends. His suicide left many grappling with the question of why someone who had given so much joy through his music would take his own life. Speculation swirled around the circumstances leading up to his death, with many pointing to his troubled relationship with Tom Scholz, the mastermind behind Boston. Some claimed that the strain of the band's internal politics, the control exerted by Scholz, and Delp's role within the band contributed to his fragile mental state. However, while these circumstances may have exacerbated his depression, they do not excuse his actions. It's vital to understand that while personal struggles can provide context for someone's behavior, they do not absolve them from the consequences of their actions. This story is not just about Brad Delp's incredible voice or his contributions to rock and roll. It is about a man who, despite his success, battled inner demons that many around him never fully understood. It is a reflection on how fame and personal pain intersect, how the pressures of stardom can magnify mental health struggles, and how the choices we make, while influenced by our circumstances, still hold us accountable for the harm they cause. In this video, we will delve deep into Brad Delp's life, examining both his rise to fame and the personal battles that ultimately led to his tragic end, exploring the notion that his demons, while understandable, do not excuse what he did. Musical beginning. Brad Delp's early life was shaped by a deep-rooted love for music, which started at an early age in his hometown of Peabody, Massachusetts. As the youngest of 4 children, Brad grew up in a household that, while loving, faced financial constraints. These early challenges played a key role in shaping his character, teaching him the importance of resilience, hard work, and dedication. Despite these hurdles, Brad's passion for music never waned, and it was clear from the outset that his life would be defined by his love for performing. Brad's introduction to music began in his childhood when he joined the church choir. This initial exposure to music gave him a sense of community and an early foundation in vocal training. However, the turning point that would define his musical career occurred in 1964, when the Beatles made their legendary appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. Brad, like countless others, was captivated by the band's energy, charisma, and sound. This performance ignited a spark within him that would fuel his passion for music for years to come. Inspired by the Beatles' infectious melodies and harmonies, Brad immediately took action by purchasing a guitar and teaching himself how to play. As a teenager, Brad formed his first band, initially called the Iguanas. This group would later change its name to the Monks, and it became the vehicle for Brad to further develop his skills as a musician. Throughout his high school years, the Monks performed a range of Beatles covers, and it was during this time that Brad began to gain recognition for his extraordinary vocal abilities. His natural ability to replicate the Beatles' distinctive harmonies set him apart from others in his community. His passion for music was undeniable, and by the time he graduated from high school, his path as a musician was clearly laid out. In the years following high school, Brad's focus remained on music, though he found it necessary to support himself with a day job. He worked at a manufacturing plant, producing heating coils for Mr. Coffee machines. Despite the demands of his job, Brad remained dedicated to his music. He spent his spare time continuing to develop his skills as a singer and musician, and his determination would soon lead him to a pivotal meeting with a like-minded individual who would change the course of his life. That individual was Tom Scholz, a talented guitarist with a vision for creating a rock band that would make a lasting impact on the music industry. Scholz had a dream of forming a band that combined technical precision with powerful melodic rock music. Delp was introduced to Scholz and his project, which was initially called Mother's Milk. Delp's vocal talents quickly impressed Scholz, and he became a central member of the band. However, the name Mother's Milk would soon be discarded, and the band would adopt the name Boston, a moniker that would become synonymous with iconic rock music. Joining Boston marked a transformative chapter in Brad Delp's career. The band quickly gained a reputation for its polished sound and the seamless integration of Delp's powerful soaring vocals with Scholz's intricate guitar work. With their self-titled debut album, Boston, 1976, the band would achieve massive commercial success. The album's polished production, catchy hooks and harmonies captured the attention of millions of fans, catapulting Delp and the band into the limelight. Brad's vocal prowess, combined with the band's innovative sound, was instrumental in Boston's success, and his influence in shaping the band's identity would remain vital throughout his career. Brad Delp's early life and musical beginnings set the stage for his rise to fame as the lead vocalist of Boston, a band that would go on to leave a lasting legacy in rock music history. His journey from a young boy inspired by the Beatles to the powerhouse voice of one of the most successful rock bands of the 1970s and beyond is a testament to his dedication, talent, and love for music. Through hard work and perseverance, Brad Delp achieved the success that many aspiring musicians only dream of, and his influence continues to resonate in the world of rock music. The formation of Boston. In the early 1970s, Tom Scholz, a former MIT graduate with a background in engineering, was working on something revolutionary, a multi-track recording system that he built in his basement. Scholz had a passion for music, and his engineering expertise led him to experiment with innovative sounds and recording techniques. During this period, he recruited Brad Delp to help him record some demos. Delp, whose powerful and emotive voice had already begun to make an impression, proved to be the perfect match for Scholz's ambitious musical vision. Together, the two laid the groundwork for what would eventually become the iconic Boston sound. Their collaborative effort in the basement studio led to a series of demos that showcased the band's potential. The demos, recorded with precision and attention to detail, caught the attention of Epic Records. The label was intrigued by the unique sound that Scholz and Delp had created, but they wanted to see the band perform live before offering a record deal. This request set the stage for the formation of the full band that would go on to change rock music history. To meet the demand for a live performance, Scholz quickly assembled a group of musicians, and the band Boston was born. Although Scholz had a clear vision of what he wanted the band to sound like, he also recognized the importance of finding musicians who could complement his ideas. The lineup featured guitarist Barry Goudreau, drummer Sib Hashian, bassist Fran Sheehan, and keyboard player Tom Scholz himself. With the final pieces of the puzzle in place, the band began to rehearse and prepare for the pivotal live performance that would determine their future. Boston's debut album, Boston, was released in 1976, and it quickly became a massive success, breaking records and establishing the band as one of the most influential acts of the era. The album's polished sound, characterized by sophisticated production and intricate guitar work, resonated with audiences. The standout tracks, including More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, and Foreplay Long Time, showcased Brad Delp's incredible vocal range and power. His soaring voice became the defining element of Boston's sound, capturing the attention of millions of listeners worldwide. Delp's vocals were integral to the album's success, as his voice blended seamlessly with Scholz's technical expertise in the studio. The combination of Delp's emotional delivery and Schultz's meticulous production created a sound that was larger than life. The multi-layered harmonies, perfect for radio play, became instantly recognizable, and the band quickly rose to prominence. Boston became the best-selling debut album at the time, a feat that solidified the band's place in rock history. However, despite the commercial success of Boston, there was underlying tension within the band. Tom Schultz, a self-proclaimed perfectionist, was known for his hands-on approach to the band's creative direction. He took charge of the production process, often spending countless hours perfecting every detail of their music. While this meticulous approach led to the high-quality sound that defined the band's debut album, it also caused friction with the other members of Boston. Schultz's controlling nature would become a point of contention as the band moved forward, creating an environment where conflicts over creative control would eventually arise. The tension within Boston would shape the band's dynamics in the years to come, but it did little to detract from the success of their debut album. Boston became a landmark in rock music, both for its innovative sound and for its incredible commercial success. Brad Delp's voice, in combination with Tom Schultz's visionary production, defined an era of rock music, and their partnership would remain a key component of Boston's identity throughout the band's career, the struggle behind the music. As Boston's success grew, so did the pressure on its members, particularly on Brad Delp, the band's lead vocalist. After the release of their massively successful debut album, the expectations for their second album, Don't Look Back, were enormous. The album was released in 1978 after a lengthy 2-year delay, and despite the extended production time, it quickly reached #1 on the U.S. album charts. On the surface, it seemed like another victory for the band. However, beneath the surface, tensions were brewing, and the struggles behind the music were beginning to take a toll on its members, especially Delp. One of the primary sources of strain within the band was the increasingly strained relationship between Brad Delp and Tom Schultz, the band's founder, primary songwriter, and producer. Schultz's perfectionism was legendary, and it was a driving force behind Boston's polished sound. However, that same perfectionism led to a working environment that was demanding and exhausting. Schultz's intense focus on every detail of the music, combined with his desire to maintain strict control over the band's direction, created an atmosphere where creative input from other members, including Delp, became secondary. This imbalance of power quickly grew into a major point of contention. Brad Delp, a man known for his humble nature and gentle demeanor, found himself increasingly sidelined. Despite being the band's iconic voice, Delp's contributions to the creative process were limited as Schultz took more control over the band's musical direction. While Delp had been a crucial part of Boston's sound, his role became more about performing and less about collaborating creatively. This exclusion from the process was especially difficult for Delp, who had always valued working together as a band. His desire to be a part of a collaborative effort clashed with Schultz's need for control, leading to frustration and growing tensions. As the internal struggles within the band deepened, Delp's personal life and mental health began to unravel. Known for his reserved and private nature, Delp had long dealt with bouts of depression. However, the weight of the increasing pressure, the lack of creative input, and the strained relationships within the band made it harder for him to keep his emotional struggles hidden. Delp's depression became more pronounced during this time, and his emotional well-being began to deteriorate. He found himself trapped between the pressures of being the face of Boston and the emotional toll it was taking on him. Despite the personal challenges he faced, Delp continued to record and tour with the band. His commitment to Boston and his professional obligations kept him moving forward, but it came at a cost. Delp's mental health struggles intensified, and his feelings of isolation within the band only worsened. He was performing under the weight of personal pain and emotional exhaustion, which only added to the growing difficulties behind the scenes. At the same time, Boston's continued success seemed to only heighten the pressure to maintain their standing in the music world. With expectations at an all-time high, the need to keep producing hit albums and touring became a constant source of stress. While the band was experiencing professional success, the personal costs to Delp were becoming increasingly evident. The music, which had once been a source of joy and collaboration, now served as a backdrop to the unraveling of Delp's emotional and mental state. Brad Delp's struggles behind the music are a poignant reminder of the pressures and personal costs that often accompany success in the music industry. While the band's external achievements were undeniable, the internal struggles they faced, particularly Delp's mental health challenges, show how the pressures of fame, control, and personal demons can affect even the most talented artists. The fallout. By the 1980s, Boston had achieved global success, cementing their place as one of the top rock bands in the world. However, despite their external achievements, the internal tensions within the band were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The relationship between Brad Delp and Tom Scholz had deteriorated to the point where it was affecting not only their personal interactions, but also the band's creative output. The constant power struggles, coupled with Scholz's perfectionism and control over the band's direction, created an environment that was becoming increasingly toxic for Delp. Feeling trapped and frustrated, Delp sought a way out of the tense atmosphere that had developed within Boston. In the mid-1980s, he made the decision to form his own band, RTZ, with former Boston guitarist Barry Goudreau. This was a significant turning point in Delp's life, as it marked his attempt to break free from the suffocating dynamics of Boston. RTZ allowed Delp the freedom to explore his own musical ideas, away from the shadow of Scholz's controlling influence. The formation of RTZ gave Delp a sense of agency that he had long been denied, offering him a chance to step into the creative spotlight and collaborate with musicians who were more open to his input. Despite the success of RTZ, Delp's connection to Boston was never fully severed. In the 1990s, he rejoined the band, contributing his unmistakable vocals to their Walk On album. While the album was met with positive reception, it became evident that the underlying tension between Delp and Scholz had not dissipated. Delp's return to Boston was a bittersweet moment, as he had to navigate the same complicated dynamics that had driven him to leave in the first place. His powerful voice remained a key element of the band's sound, but the fractured relationship with Scholz continued to cast a shadow over the group's work. Throughout his career, Delp's mental health struggles were a constant undercurrent. The pressures of being part of a high-profile band, coupled with the ongoing tensions within Boston, took a toll on his emotional well-being. His struggle with depression was something he had long kept private, but the weight of the public eye and the internal struggles within the band only intensified these challenges. Delp's decision to leave Boston again after his brief return reflected his need for peace and stability in his personal life, away from the chaos that had defined his time with the band. In the years that followed, Delp continued to pursue other musical projects, yet the turmoil he faced during his time with Boston remained an enduring part of his story. His departures from the band, though they allowed him to explore new musical avenues, were driven by the same internal struggles that had plagued him throughout his career. The lasting impact of the fallout within Boston, both personally and professionally, highlighted the difficulty of maintaining one's sense of self amid the pressures and demands of fame. Brad Delp's tragic death on March 9, 2007, shocked the world. The iconic voice of Boston was found at his New Hampshire home, a victim of suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. Several suicide notes were discovered, expressing Delp's overwhelming feelings of despair and pain. His death highlighted the destructive power of depression, even for those who seem to have everything going for them. In the wake of his passing, many pointed to Tom Scholz, accusing his authoritarian control over Boston as a significant factor contributing to Delp's mental health struggles. While it's clear the band's internal dynamics were far from ideal, It's important to recognize that depression is a complex illness. While external pressures like Schultz's behavior may have played a role, they cannot entirely explain or justify Delp's decision to take his own life. Brad Delp's personal demons were undeniably part of his story, but they do not excuse the heartbreaking choice he made. Depression, no matter its source, is a deeply personal battle. Delp's death is a reminder that fame and success do not protect anyone from internal struggles, and even those who appear to have it all may be silently suffering. Brad Delp's legacy as a brilliant musician, whose voice continues to inspire, lives on. His tragic end, however, is a reminder that we must be mindful of mental health, offer support, and approach those battling with empathy. If you found this story impactful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more on the lives of music legends and the untold stories behind their successes.